Well, we're concerned about this budget being, firstly, it's a good thing that the government's prepared to spend money, but we want to make sure that that money ends up in the right place. And that's where we're worried. We don't think it does enough to save the jobs of people in work at the moment, and definitely not enough to guarantee work, secure jobs for the people that are unemployed. The Treasurer himself said he wanted to see a test of economic recovery. Was unemployment getting below 6%? Even in his own forecasts here, he's got it rising to 8%. And still only being at 6.5% in 2022. The other thing that we're worried about is that it starts to show some economic recovery, but it doesn't fairly share that. They predict there's going to be a 10% recovery, which is pretty ambitious, I think, over 4 years, but zero wage growth for ordinary working people. So if you want the economy to recover, people have got to have secure jobs and workers have got to have money in their pocket to spend, and we don't think it hits the mark on that.
But they will have money to spend through tax cuts, would they not?
Well, this is the thing. The huge bulk of tax cuts in this budget go to business. Nearly $27 billion is business tax cuts, much smaller to ordinary people. And of course, for workers, the biggest tax cuts go to the highest paid. And if you don't have a job, you don't get zero out of any tax cuts. And if you're low income, you get very tiny amounts, like a minimum wage worker gets $2.11 a week. So that's not going to make a difference in terms of consumer spending. And we're also worried that the government might start to listen to some in the business lobby who are arguing that they need to go further with industrial relations changes and actually reduce workers' wages and conditions. That would be a disaster for consumer confidence.
Businesses have been incentivised to employ younger Australians, those who are out of work at the moment, as you know, under the age of 35. Do you have any concerns that there may be a disincentive to employ people over the age of 35?
We are worried about workers over the age of 35 and also even about the subsidy for young workers because, of course, we want to see people get into work. But again, these can be casual jobs, short-term jobs, that the business can get double the subsidy to employ 2 young people for 20 hours a week for a short period of time. So we're worried about seeing a churn or one worker swap for another. And for older workers, you know, there's a lot of people waking up today saying, I don't think I feel any more secure after this budget. And what's to be done to support them to stay in work? Because we know the government confirms that they're going to cut off JobKeeper. It's 3.5 million workers reliant on that at the moment to keep them connected to their job.
And a lot of talk about women too. I mean, some 56% of all people who lost their jobs, Michelle, were women. Do you have any concerns that, you know, women have been left out in this budget?
Oh, women have been completely ignored in this budget. What's been thrown is crumbs here. There is no proper response to the fact that women have really borne the brunt of jobs and hours lost and a whole lot of the other caring responsibilities that have happened through this pandemic. And how are they repaid? Like there's 400 jobs here and 300 support for people to start a business there. What's really missing and really disappointing that opportunity hasn't been taken by the government is to do that reintroduction of free childcare. That's the thing that would have made the difference for women being able to get back to work, and we see zero support there. And of course, the other big thing that I can't believe they didn't do, the majority of workers in aged care are women. And again, instead of doing something we know is urgently needed to improve the quality of aged care, which is mandating minimum staff levels in those residential facilities, zero going to that.
So just to clarify, you believe that there is an omission here when it comes to childcare?
Oh, absolutely. Look, the thing about putting money into childcare is that it really is the key thing that allows women to get back into work, and there's nothing to do that in the budget. But also, of course, it's good for that sector because 97% of the workers in early childhood education and care are women. So it's such an obvious sector to put money into. Good for kids, good for women trying to get to work, and of course, good for the workers in the sector.
What about underperforming super funds being blocked from taking on new members if those returns aren't improved? Does that sound fair enough to you?
Look, I think this is just another step in the government's attack on our superannuation system. We support measures that are about making sure that workers have access to not-for-profit funds, which is what industry funds are. But the government's not doing anything about that and not targeting, those really high fees that the retail funds, the for-profit funds mainly charge. That's where the working people are getting really slugged. So we don't think that's the answer to super. What we didn't hear, and this is the big risk for super, is the government ruling out this suggestion they've made that they're not going to go ahead with the super increases in 2021. What the budget says is there's going to be zero wage growth. So the very least the government could do is guarantee that they're also not going to take people's super away in July next year.